What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to be showing you the difference between learning an entry and using an entry. So if you guys are new to this channel, I've recently launched my own banner under Bias Manos, which is now Anastacio Association. And within my curriculum, I have 9 entries that I use empty hand, not just empty hand, but particularly with the empty hand, the ways to combat a cross. Now, it doesn't have to be a cross, but basically ways to enter, grapple, control your opponent in various situations. Now, a lot of the times I show these entries, and especially I read a lot of the comments, and I understand what you're saying, I understand where you're coming from. And one of the biggest things is you can't do that to someone who actually wants to punch you. The puncher's too fast, or maybe they're too skilled, and there's a lot of variables that come into play that will ultimately determine, is this entry going to work or not? So yes, as a whole, the entries are sometimes a little bit more intricate than most movements. And under adrenaline and stress and specific circumstances, you may or may not be able to pull this off. So the concept of learning the entry is to learn it perfectly in a compliant manner. So what that means is, between me and my partner, they're not throwing anything with intent. Basically, they're just throwing an angle to allow me to learn the process and learn the techniques. And of course, I would love to do everything without making mistakes. But in the reality of self-defense, mistakes are more than likely to be made, because even in training, you'll make them. So how do we make the entries that we learn compliant become applicable when there's resistance or a higher level of offense from the opponent? And so I'm going to show you a couple entries and how we translate that into the application side. Okay, so again, when we work off of entries, you can work jab, cross, or you can just work the cross. I'm going to be showing entry 1 and 2. Entry 1 is what we call a single parry. Entry 2 is a parry with break. So first thing I'll do is I'll show you it in a compliant form. So my partner punches slow towards my face. I meet it. I start parrying it down. I enter. I clamp up here. I set my frame. I rotate down into my knee. Okay, we do it a little faster. This is entry 1, compliant. Okay, and now while you can argue that with a little bit more power and speed on my side, I should still be able to pull this off when it comes to me actually trying to go for it. But at the same time, one of the principles that we follow here is never underestimate your opponent. So it's very difficult to gauge the resistance unless your partner actually gives this to you. Now, you still want to train within your means of safety, so armoring up, having gear, setting certain parameters around your training are all very crucial things to be able to pressure test. So kind of the concept that I look for now when I do my entry 1 is, instead of just parrying it in almost a circular motion, especially if the person has a stronger punch, a heavier punch, all I'm going to do is first I keep my hands up, because I want to have something in between my face and my opponent's, what we call fangs, so that the punches, the kicks, the hands, the legs, maybe a headbutt, I want something in between us. So my hands are always up, always starting in a good position. Rather than parrying circular, I'm going to slam it down. I can hack using my forearm, I can hack maybe with my elbow if it's nice and high, I can use my palms, doesn't matter, but I'm hacking it down. And from here I'm going to shoot in, and I'm going to try to accomplish what we call an over-under. Very, very common amongst many different martial arts. I'm looking for my left hand to go under and underhook the shoulder, and my right arm is going to hook over. And I'm not looking to strike an elbow, I'm not looking to clamp at the wrist. I'm coming up, I'm cinching it up by using a gable grip, and I'm going to pull this nice and high. And my goal is to shoot in hard, get it, and grab it. So if I rotate real quick, what I've done is I've come a lot closer, and what I'm targeting is the shoulder. Because the shoulder is what's going to be controlling the elbow, which controls the wrist, which controls the hand. So if I get control over the shoulder, 1, I can start manipulating his posture, but 2, all of this is too far back to be able to harm me the same way. A lot harder for him to retain his punch at the same time as well. So when I grab this gable grip, 2 things, I'm going to be squeezing with my neck up here. So I'm going to bring my trap up, my shoulder closer to my ear, and I'm also going to make sure there's no space in between our arms. I'm keeping this nice and tight. And there's different positions that his elbow can end up in, but in this case it's pointing up, so it's perfect for me. So from here, what I can do is I can just clamp, hold, squeeze, and this is a full arm bar on its own. So I have very, very good control here. All I want to do right now is maintain the good position, or what we call a dominant position. Once I have this, I can transition, I can grab fabric, I can just hold on tight here. I can take my right arm, I can create the frame that I did the first time, and I can knee from here. All my takedowns are here as well. But this is going to allow me to have various options. Okay, this dominant position gives me various manners of control. So when I get here, I can walk the base, I can look for a full circle, I can do all these things, and the very easy part of this is detaching myself and then going for a strike. That's the easy part. So my partner throws that cross, I come down, I shoot in, and I grab nice and tight. Okay, I want to make sure that I can make this posture bend and I can take that from him. I don't want his spine to be stacked when I try this because it would be very, very difficult. So I'm rotating his shoulder forward and I'm aligning his head because where the head goes, the body must follow. So I'm kind of pushing this down as I tighten this up and squeeze. Okay, now from here, if I don't want the full armbar, there's various positions I can do. I can take this hand, I can slide it off, we can go into like a kimura to the back, and once I get that, still maintaining the position, locking up using a key grip or a figure four. And then again, everything still here to do. So there's times when entry one's gonna have to look like that. Would I like entry one to look like this? Absolutely. Okay? So learning the difference between the two, bridging the gap to make the curriculum close to application without just pressure testing everything, makes it accessible to learn. And that's one of my main goals, is to make Filipino martial arts an accessible form of self-defense. Because a lot of the times, it takes a lifetime of work. It should not take you 5.5 years roughly to get a black sash or an instructor level, depending on your system. It shouldn't take that amount of time to be able to confidently say you could defend yourself. With the little bit that you have, you should be able to learn how to apply it in a position where things aren't always as nicely as you train. So modifying it in this manner is one of the ways we do it. Now when we look at entry two, again, compliant, what we're doing is we're doing a block check counter principle, and we're looking for a parry with a break. So this is going to be hyperextending the elbow, and then from here everything else is the same. I clamp the wrist, I frame against the neck, I rotate down, I get the knee. We put it under resistance, I start my hands up, and now I'm going to grab. So this is going to frame and protect my face, and I'm going to reach over and I'm going to grab it, almost in the same motion. So I'm coming over like this, okay? The main ingredient there is actually this coming in for an elbow. So I'm going to push and pull at the same time. And the idea with entry two is, if I get this, I may not have to do the Kali flow that follows. I may not have to do this particular setting. I might get this here and go into offense somewhere else. Or I might flow to the other hand. It gives me all the possibilities. But if I do get this over here, I can shoot it down the same way, shoot in the same way, cinch this up nice and tight, squeeze, get the position, frame if I need to, and go back to everything that I know in regards to my Kali flow, in regards to how I approach from entry to flow to takedown. So following the principles of having good position, I've actually taken this from reaching far and deep and wide in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. To me, Filipino martial arts has always been offensively oriented. It's always been being nice and light, learning how to disconnect and strike your angles. And then for me, for what I have so far, at the very least, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is very connected. It's very defensive. It's catching them and beating them with a dominant position. So balancing the two, it helps me realize that there's a time and place to move quickly. There's a time and place to strike. There's a time and place to control the situation, the posture, and be able to reduce the movement and the freedom that my opponent has without having to strike them all the time. So one of the things with Anastacio Kali is, yes, we use these entries as a form of self-defense, and we have a lot of particular empty-hand setups, but we are still weapon-oriented. We still train with the sticks and the knives, and to strike someone with a weapon is the easy part, right? But if my partner, James, wanted to throw a punch at me and I had a knife or I had a stick, that's not enough justification for me to good thing the arm, slash the neck, stab him, and then be on my way, That might have applied, 30, 40 years ago or whatever, and in another country, but especially here, especially in Canada, all the rules and the laws, and, at the end of the day, as a martial artist, you want to be able to have that capacity if you need to, but you shouldn't have to do it for the mere instance of defending yourself in an altercation that could have ended less violently. So again, making self-defense a little bit more accessible via Filipino martial arts. So we look at that again. Okay, we have entry 1. I'm slapping it down, shooting in, cinching it up, framing, and then from here, I work what I need to do. I do entry 2. That's a push and pull motion here. Slam it down, shoot it in, grab it, and then from here, I can rotate my partner. I can hold this nice and tight. I can squeeze. So here's a good time between partners. We can try to resist each other. We can try to see if he can stand up, see if I can hold this and prevent him from breaking this. If I know I can control this, the way I want to dominate my opponent, the way that I want to inflict damage to my opponent or control them, there's so many different ways because I have the dominant position. I don't need to just strike him right away. I can hold him. I can maybe de-escalate verbally. I can maybe lock them into a submission and have a third party intervene as opposed to me smashing his head in on the ground, bang, 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 bang. And again, it's not wrong. It's not bad. It's just shouldn't be the one and only way to defend yourself, okay? Especially for those that may lack in size, may lack in expertise even, may lack in maturity, may lack in perspective. The one thing you don't want rooting your self-defense or your empowerment is the ability to produce violence. So that's how we apply the flow, and that's how we can make it a little bit more realistic for those that are asking if you were to try this with someone who punches a little faster, punches a little bit more aggressively. These are ways we can combat that, but at the end of the day, part of it is mental, understanding the application, understanding the intent on both sides, understanding the environment, the situation, and ultimately that's going to lead you to understand how you're going to do your techniques and even what techniques you're going to do. When all things fail and I can't think properly, I practice the techniques as compliant as possible over and over and over again so that I have a guideline to build, to shape, to mold to each and every situation I end up in. Hopefully none, but if I do, they're not all going to be as aggressive. They're not all going to follow that same template. So having kind of a generic template allows me to play around with it and pressure test it in different situations. Without that, I'm kind of just freestyling. And for some people that don't have that repertoire and can just work off a principle, they need that structure to be able to learn and adapt and have tools in their toolbox pretty much. So that's what we're working on, especially with our basic access on Anastacio Kali. So if you want to check that out, the links are below. If you did enjoy the video or if you have any questions, make sure you comment below and give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. And until next time, catch you guys later.